Howdy, my name is JC Stolzis, and today I'll be telling you about the story of William Byrne, also known as Bill. He is a retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, and when he told me his story, he told it in chronological order, so I figured that'd be only right to tell you in that order today. So he started at Texas A&M University in the Corps Cadets. He graduated in 1980 with a BBA in management, and then he commissioned into the Air Force in August of 1980. Instead of attending basic training, which he pretty much already went through with the Corps Cadets, he attended Manpower Management Officer School at Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi. After Manpower School, he went to Bergstrom Air Force Base in Texas, and this is when he officially became a management engineering officer, which meant he was in charge of auditing the number of people needed for certain jobs at certain locations on base. So he audited jobs like the guard post or even the commissary, which is pretty much the Walmart of military bases. During his time, he also completed his MBA at St. Edward's University, which helped him later down in his career. After this, he went to Mountain Home Air Force Base in Idaho, where he became a first lieutenant, and he was the commander of Detachment 11th of the 4400th Management Engineering Squadron. This was a bigger step in his career because he was 26 years old and in charge of not only military personnel, but also civilians. It was a really big learning curve for him. He did tell me that it did help him later in life, but he also did really struggle with it at the time. After Mountain Home, he went to the Citadel. And this is where his MBA really helped because he needed a master's to become um, a professor or an ROTC instructor at the Citadel. So he was an assistant professor of aerospace studies and an ROTC instructor. He didn't really talk about it too much, but I'm pretty sure he made a really big impact there, especially on his students. After the Citadel, he went back to Manpower at Langley Air Force Base. And this is when he was in charge of managing the tactical air command, which is pretty much he kept track of all the positions from people flying F-15s to even civil engineers. Um, so he kept track of making sure all those positions were filled. They had the correct amount of positions. Um, and also during this time, there was a big budget cut within the Air Force, especially in the Tactical Air Command, which meant that they had to eliminate 25,000 positions. So he had to help decide which positions to cut and where to either relocate those people on the base or onto a different base. After this, he went to the Pentagon, which he basically still did his manpower, but instead of for a small base, he did it for the entirety of the Air Force, um, which made a really big impact on the Air Force. I'm sure of it. After the Pentagon, he went back to Texas and worked at Randolph Air Force Base. This is when he became personnel. Um, this meant that he kind of supported everyone except for people who flew planes. He didn't really talk about it too much. So that's really all I know about his time doing personnel assignments. As he was at Randolph, he went on his first and only deployment. He went to Saudi Arabia for 95 days. This is when he was personnel and manpower. He was making sure that they had all the staffing requests put in, and assigned, and then also processing award decorations. At the time, he did not know he was processing them. He thought he was reviewing them and then sending them off to be fully processed, until he got a call from a higher up saying, "Hey, you're processing a lot of awards. What's going on?" And then he realized, "Oh, I'm actually the one processing them." So he told that story and it was really entertaining. After Saudi Arabia, he came back to Texas A&M University and he worked with the Corps Cadets as a cadet training officer. He did that for about 3 years, I believe. and then he retired from the Air Force after 25 years of service. And then he did stay with the Corps Cadets for about 9 more years. He was a deputy chief of staff for the Commandant, and he also worked with recruiting. And within those 9 years, he recruited anywhere between 7,000 and 8,000 cadets to the Corps. Um, so for the last slide, I have a couple pictures that um, of things in Bill's house that he has displayed. The middle picture is actually his father, his son, and then himself, which all three of them are were lieutenant colonels in the Air Force. I do believe his son is still technically in the Air Force, but for sure a lieutenant colonel. On the right, there are three silver oak leaves, which is the insignia of a lieutenant colonel. So there's three of them, each for one for his father, one for his son, and one for himself. And then on the right is his shadow box, which has all of his ranks, his ribbons, and his medals that he has earned throughout his time in the military. This was William Bill Byrne's story. Thanks for listening.